They thought I was too old, too weak, too dependent to fight back. My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and called me a burden. And when I went to my own son for comfort, he didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for me. He said I should apologize. Apologize for existing. That moment broke me, but it also lit a fire I didn't know I still had. They wanted me silent, invisible, powerless. But instead, I found a way to show them just how dangerous it is to underestimate a woman like me. My name is Margaret Collins, and this is the story of how betrayal pushed me to take a kind of revenge they never saw coming. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 78 years old, a widow of nearly 20 years, and I thought I'd spent the last chapter of my life learning how to be content with quiet things: the rocking chair on the porch, a warm cup of tea, the laughter of my grandchildren echoing in my ears. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that peace can be snatched away in an instant. I raised 2 sons, David and Mark. Both were good boys, though David, my eldest, was always the ambitious one. He grew into a successful man, a financial advisor with a big suburban house and a picture-perfect family. Mark chose simpler work, teaching at a local high school. My husband John used to smile and say, "One son carries the family name into the world, the other keeps it grounded." I believed him. But when John passed, the weight of family shifted. I leaned on David more than I wanted to admit. Not for money, I had my pension and savings, but for the comfort of feeling wanted. And in those first years, I thought his wife, Amanda, welcomed me. She cooked me dinners, let me sit on the couch with the children, even called me Mom once or twice. I believed we had something like closeness. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd been living with David and Amanda for 6 months after a small fall left me shaky on my feet. The doctor said I only needed time to recover, but Amanda insisted I stay. "It'll be easier for everyone," she told David, smiling tightly. I should have recognized the warning in her eyes. That day, I'd folded laundry in the living room while Amanda prepared dinner. I offered to help, reaching for the carrots she was chopping, but she snatched them back. "Please, Margaret, just sit. You'll only slow me down." Her voice was flat, sharp. I felt my cheeks burn. "I can still chop a carrot, Amanda." She turned, knife still in her hand, and looked straight at me. "You know what you are, Margaret? A burden. That's what you've become." The words sliced deeper than any knife ever could. I sat frozen, laundry half folded in my lap. My ears rang, my throat clenched. I wanted to shout, to defend myself, but no sound came out. I hadn't been called useless since I was a child fumbling with chores on the farm. And now here I was, 78, being told by the woman who married my son that my very presence was too heavy to bear. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment in my mind, her cold eyes, the way she turned back to the chopping board as if I didn't exist. So the next morning, I did what I thought was right. I went to David. He was in his home office, scrolling through numbers on his computer. I knocked gently. "David," I whispered, "I need to tell you something." He barely looked up. "What's wrong, Mom?" I twisted my hands together, my heart pounding. "Amanda called me a burden yesterday. She said I slow everything down." I didn't know what to say. For a moment, I expected him to stand, to wrap me in his arms, to tell me I was wrong, that I wasn't a burden, that I was his mother and I belonged. But instead, he sighed. A long, heavy sigh. "Mom, don't make this into drama. Amanda works hard. She probably just snapped." "David," I whispered, she meant it. I could see it in her eyes. He rubbed his temples, frustration in every line of his face. And then he said it. "Words I'll never forget. Then maybe you should just apologize to her. Keep the peace. I'd rather you do that than stir things up." Apologize. The word slammed into me harder than Amanda's insult. My own son thought I should apologize for being in his home, for existing, for being the woman who carried him for 9 months and worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I nodded, but inside, something cracked. I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My reflection in the mirror across the room showed a small wrinkled woman with silver hair pinned neatly in a bun, her eyes red from unshed tears. For the first time in my life, I didn't recognize her. I whispered aloud, "Am I really just a burden?" Silence answered. But then another voice rose, quiet but steady, my own. No. I am not a burden. I am Margaret Collins. And they will regret the day they treated me like one. That night, I began to think. Not just about the insult, not just about David's betrayal, but about what power really meant. I had been dismissed, overlooked, made to feel small. But I still had my mind. I still had my savings. And I still had a heart full of memories, both tender and sharp, that Amanda and David had no idea could be turned into weapons. As I stared at the ceiling in the dark, one thought repeated itself like a drumbeat: they wanted me invisible. Instead, I would make myself unforgettable. And little did they know, I already had a way to begin. The morning after David told me to apologize, I did something unexpected. I smiled. Not because I forgave him, but because I finally understood. If my own son thought so little of me, if his wife could call me a burden to my face, then I had nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing left to lose can be the most dangerous kind of woman. I made myself small, invisible, just as they wanted. I moved quietly around the house, folded laundry, washed dishes, kept to my room. I let Amanda believe she had crushed me. I let David think his words had silenced me. But inside, my mind was busy building something else, a plan. See, people like Amanda and David reveal themselves when they think no one's watching. I started noticing little things. Amanda loved luxury, new handbags, spa days, jewelry that sparkled a little too brightly to be casual. She wasn't careful about hiding receipts either. I found them tossed in the kitchen trash, $1,000 charges at boutiques, expensive dinners while David worked late. And David, well, he was drowning in his own ambition. He took calls at all hours, whispered arguments about clients, debts, numbers that didn't add up. I pretended not to hear, but every muffled word slipped under his office door like a thread in a tapestry I was weaving. One evening, Amanda strutted into the living room wearing a silk robe, glass of wine in hand. She spotted me sitting quietly with my knitting. "Don't you ever get tired of just existing?" she asked, lips curling in a smirk. I forced a small laugh. "Oh, at my age, darling, existing is about all we've got left." She giggled, satisfied that I'd accepted her insult. But inside, I filed her cruelty away like evidence in a case. Later that night, when they thought I was asleep, I heard them talking in the kitchen. Amanda's voice was sharp. "She's going to live forever, isn't she? I mean, how long are we supposed to babysit her?" David groaned. "Amanda, please. Don't start." "I'm serious," she snapped. "She doesn't pay rent, she eats our food, she takes up space. What if she falls again? We'll be stuck with her hospital bills. I didn't marry you to be someone's nurse." David's voice was tired, resigned. "I told her to apologize. Just give it time." I lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, every word cutting deep. But instead of crying, I began to outline my plan. They thought I had nothing. They thought I was powerless. But what they didn't know was that John and I had built a life carefully, piece by piece, and not all of it had been left in plain sight. Years ago, before his heart gave out, John and I bought a small property outside of town. We never told David. We wanted something of our own, a place untouched by his ambition. I still paid the taxes quietly, year after year, out of my pension. The deed was in my name. That house, that land, it was mine. And now, it was my weapon. But I couldn't move too quickly. No, revenge has to be brewed like strong tea, left to steep until it's bitter enough to do its work. So I played my role. The fragile old woman. The apologetic burden. The next morning, I shuffled into the kitchen where Amanda was sipping coffee, scrolling through her phone. I lowered my eyes. "Amanda, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've been in the way. I'll try harder not to be a problem." She blinked in surprise, then smirked. "Well, thank you, Margaret. That's all I needed to hear." She turned back to her phone, already forgetting me. But I didn't forget. I never would. Over the next weeks, I watched and listened. Amanda boasted to her friends about her burden of a mother-in-law, never realizing I stood in the hallway hearing every word. David grew more stressed, snapping at the children, slamming doors. Their perfect life was cracking, and I was the only one who could see the whole picture. One afternoon, while Amanda was out shopping and David was at work, I asked my granddaughter Lily, sweet Lily, only 12 years old, to help me in the garden. As we pulled weeds, she looked up at me with innocent eyes and said, "Grandma, why does Mom always call you a burden? You're not. You help me with homework and you make the best cookies." My throat tightened. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing a silver strand of hair from my face, "sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them. But you do. And that means the world to me." In that moment, I knew I wasn't just planning revenge for myself. I was doing it for Lily too. She deserved better examples than a greedy mother and a weak father. So I began to gather papers, receipts, overheard words. I even snapped photos with the little disposable camera I kept in my drawer. Amanda sneaking into boutiques, David pacing with bank statements. Every scrap of evidence was another stitch in my quilt of justice. And then, opportunity knocked sooner than I expected. One evening, Amanda's friend came over for wine. I stayed in my room, but the walls of that house were thin. I heard Amanda laugh, a cruel, sharp sound. "She thinks she's safe here," Amanda told her friend. "But once David gets the new promotion, we'll put her in a home. She won't see it coming." A home. They wanted to throw me out. The irony nearly made me laugh. They didn't know I'd already lived that life once. And I wasn't going back. That night, I pulled out the property deed from my locked suitcase, smoothing the yellowed paper with my frail hands. My reflection in the window showed the same wrinkled woman, but her eyes weren't sad anymore. They were sharp, hungry, ready. I whispered to John's memory, "They think I'm a burden. They'll learn I'm a storm." And so I decided, it was time to set my trap. But before I could make my move, I had to draw them in. And the bait I had in mind would not only shock Amanda and David, it would destroy their precious little illusion of control. Because what they didn't know was that I was about to change the balance of power in this house forever. I had lived in their house like a ghost, quiet and polite, but now it was time to rattle the chains. My first step was to plant a seed, one I knew Amanda wouldn't be able to resist watering. At breakfast one morning, while Amanda scrolled through her phone and David gulped down his coffee before work, I cleared my throat. "I had a call from an old friend yesterday," I said softly. "She told me there are programs in town that help older folks with property management. You know, in case someone has land or assets they can't handle anymore." Amanda's eyes flicked up instantly. That word, property, might as well have been gold dust. She masked her excitement with a fake yawn. "Oh? And do you have property, Margaret?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, nothing much. Just something John and I took care of years ago. I don't suppose it's worth a lot. Maybe just sentimental value." I could feel her watching me the rest of the day, like a hawk circling prey. She couldn't help herself. That evening, while David worked late, I caught her slipping into my room, rifling through drawers. I'd left a carefully folded receipt from the county tax office just sticking out of my jewelry box, the words "property tax paid in full" written in bold letters. Amanda's fingers shook as she read it. I stood silently in the hallway, watching her eyes glitter with greed. I let her take the bait. Later that night, she cornered David in the kitchen. I listened from the shadows as she hissed, "Your mother's hiding something. Property. Land. Who knows how much it's worth?" David sighed, weary. "Amanda, you're imagining things." "No, I saw it. She has assets. And if she dies without a will, it could all go somewhere else." I smiled in the darkness. She was already doing my work for me. The next few weeks, I made myself even smaller. I coughed a little louder, walked a little slower, let Amanda see me struggle with the stairs. She whispered to David, "She won't last much longer." They both thought I was fading, but what I was really doing was giving them the illusion of time. Meanwhile, I began setting my stage. I contacted a lawyer in town, an old friend of John's, and arranged for the property deed to be updated. But instead of transferring ownership, I created a trust, one with Lily's name on it. Amanda and David would never see it coming. I also began to collect more evidence. I started carrying a small recorder in my cardigan pocket. The walls of their perfect home betrayed them every day. Amanda snapped one night over dinner. "Margaret, why do you always sit so quietly? You make the whole table depressing." I tilted my head. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I didn't realize silence was such a burden." Her face twisted, but she didn't answer. Later, I replayed her words, her tone, her contempt, into the recorder. Piece by piece, I was building a story, their story, one they couldn't escape. Then came the breaking point. One Saturday morning, I heard Amanda talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice was sharp, impatient. As soon as David gets the promotion, we're moving. Yes, of course, without her. She'll be in a facility by then. We'll sell whatever she has. I'm not wasting my life on that old woman. My blood ran cold. They weren't just planning to send me away, they were planning to strip me clean. That night, I pulled Lily aside. We sat on her bed, the soft glow of her lamp lighting her sweet young face. Lily, I whispered, if Grandma had a little house in the country, would you want to visit me there? Her eyes lit up. Of course. Can I ride horses there? I smiled. Maybe one day. But it'll be ours, Lily. Yours and mine. A place no one can take from us. She hugged me tight, and I knew I was doing the right thing. A week later, I staged my first move. I accidentally left a folder of fake documents on the kitchen counter, an appraisal report I had typed up myself, with figures suggesting the property was worth nearly $500,000. Amanda found it, of course. Her face went pale, then hungry, as she read. That evening, she poured David a glass of wine and purred, "Darling, if your mother really has this property, we need to convince her to sign it over before it's too late." David rubbed his temples. "Amanda, she's old. She's scared. Just give it time." But Amanda shook her head. "No. If we don't act, someone else will get it. And I won't let that happen." I sat upstairs in the dark, listening, recording, smiling. They were walking straight into my trap. The next morning, I shuffled into the kitchen, coughing weakly. I let Amanda see the deed sticking out of my cardigan pocket, just enough for her eyes to catch it. I tucked it away quickly, pretending not to notice. Her eyes followed me like a predator. I could almost hear her thoughts. Soon it'll be mine. But it never would be. Because what she didn't know was that every step she took toward betraying me was another step into the cage I was building for her. And soon, I would slam the door shut. By now, Amanda was practically salivating. She hovered around me like a vulture circling a carcass, pretending kindness one moment and snapping insults the next. She thought she was wearing me down, softening me up for the big ask. But what she didn't know was that I had already prepared the battlefield, and she was about to march straight into it. It began on a Thursday evening. David came into my room, his tie loosened, his face pale with stress. He sat down on the edge of the bed like he used to when he was a boy with a scraped knee. But now there was no tenderness in his voice. Only desperation. "Mom," he said, "Amanda tells me you have some property. Some land. Is that true?" I folded my hands in my lap, lowering my eyes. "Oh, just something your father and I bought years ago. Nothing important." His voice sharpened. "How much is it worth?" I shrugged. I never thought about it. Maybe a little. Maybe nothing. David sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Mom, listen. You can't handle property at your age. It's too much responsibility. If you give me the paperwork, I can take care of it for you. Protect it." Protect it. The word almost made me laugh. The same son who told me to apologize for being insulted now wanted to protect me. I let my voice tremble. "Oh, David. I don't know. That land is all I have left of your father." Amanda swept into the room then, her perfume cloying, her smile sharp as glass. She held out a folder. "Margaret, we've already prepared the transfer papers. All you have to do is sign, and it will all be managed properly. You won't have to worry about anything." Her tone was sugar, but her eyes were poison. I took the folder with shaking hands, opening it slowly. Inside were neat legal documents, lines of text and spaces for signatures. My son and his wife leaned forward like gamblers watching the dice roll. I looked up at them, wrinkled face soft, eyes watering. "You really think this is best?" Amanda nodded eagerly. "Of course. We'll take care of everything. You'll be free of the burden." There it was again. Burden. I let my pen hover above the line, my hand trembling just enough to make them think I was caving. Their faces lit with anticipation. And then, I set the pen down. "No," I whispered. Amanda's face twisted. What do you mean, no? I sat up straighter, my voice steadier. I said no. I won't sign away my property. Not now. Not ever. David's jaw clenched. Mom, don't be stubborn. This is for your own good. For my good. I snapped, my voice rising with a strength I hadn't felt in years. You told me to apologize for being called a burden. You let your wife treat me like garbage in my own home. And now you expect me to hand over the only thing left of my husband? No, David. I may be old, but I'm not a fool. Amanda's mask slipped, fury spilling across her face. You selfish, ungrateful old woman. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Do you even realize how hard it is to have you here? Her words pierced the air, cruel and sharp, and the little recorder hidden beneath my cardigan captured every syllable. I sat back, calm once again. I'm sorry you feel that way, Amanda. But this conversation is over. They stormed out, their voices raised in the hallway, Amanda's shrill accusations mingling with David's frustrated sighs. But I only smiled to myself. Every word had been recorded. Every threat, every insult, evidence. That weekend, I staged the next phase. Over dinner, I pretended to grow weaker, fumbling with my fork, coughing dramatically. Amanda rolled her eyes, whispering to David, "See? She's deteriorating. We have to move fast." And move fast they did. 2 days later, a notary arrived at the house. Amanda had arranged it, thinking she'd finally cornered me. She placed the papers in front of me once again, her painted nails tapping impatiently on the table. "Margaret," she said, her tone falsely sweet, "this is just a formality. Sign here, and you'll never have to worry again." I glanced at David. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked ashamed, but not enough to stop. I picked up the pen, my frail hand trembling. I let them believe I was surrendering. And then, with a sudden burst of strength, I tore the papers clean in half. Amanda gasped, her face flushing crimson. "What have you done?" I met her glare, my voice cold. "I've taken back my dignity. And soon, you'll learn exactly what that means." David tried to calm her, but it was no use. Amanda screamed, slammed her fists against the table, called me names I won't repeat. But I didn't flinch. Because I knew something they didn't. The sheriff in town already had a copy of my recordings, my notes, my photographs. And soon, the truth about them would come crashing down. That night, as I lay in bed, I whispered to John's memory, "I'm almost there. Tomorrow, they'll see who the real burden is." Because my revenge wasn't just about keeping my property. It was about exposing them, their greed, their cruelty, their betrayal. And when the world heard what they had done, Amanda and David wouldn't just lose me. They'd lose everything. The morning light streamed through the curtains, soft and golden, but my heart was steel. Today was the day. For weeks, Amanda and David had believed they were closing in, tightening a noose around me. They thought I was too weak, too tired, too dependent to fight back. But what they didn't know was that I had already pulled the rope from their hands, and I was ready to hang their reputations with it. It started at breakfast. Amanda barely spoke to me anymore except in clipped orders. "Pass the salt," she muttered. "Don't spill on the tablecloth." Her contempt dripped into every syllable. David sat stiff and quiet, his guilt turning into a shadow behind his eyes. I pushed my plate away and stood, my frail figure straightened by determination. "I'll be going out today," I said calmly. Amanda snorted. "What for? A knitting club?" I looked her straight in the eye. "No. Something far more important." She rolled her eyes, but David's forehead creased. He sensed it. Something was shifting. I walked out of their house with my handbag tucked close, the recorder inside, along with neatly prepared copies of every piece of evidence I'd gathered, Amanda's insults, David's complicity, their whispered plans to put me away and steal what was mine. My first stop was the sheriff's office. Sheriff Daniels had known John and me for years. When I placed the manila envelope on his desk, his weathered brows lifted. "Margaret, what's all this?" "Proof," I said firmly, my voice steady. "Proof of elder abuse. Financial manipulation. Threats. I want it on record." He listened to the recordings, his jaw tightening with every cruel word Amanda had spat, every cowardly silence David had offered. "This is serious," he said quietly. "Don't worry, Margaret. We'll handle it." But I wasn't finished. My next stop was the local newspaper. The editor, a sharp young woman named Claire, leaned forward as I handed her the second folder. Inside were photos of Amanda's luxury spending, receipts of her secret shopping sprees, and transcripts of her calling me a burden. Claire's eyes flashed. "People need to hear this. Too many families hide behind closed doors. You're brave, Margaret." Brave. I hadn't felt that word in years. By evening, the story broke online. Elderly widow exposes family's cruelty, betrayed by son, mocked by daughter-in-law. My phone buzzed with calls, messages from neighbors, from old church friends, from Mark, my younger son, who had always stayed quiet but never cruel. "Mom," he said over the phone, voice trembling, "I had no idea they treated you this way. I'm coming for you. You don't have to stay there another night." That was the moment I knew I'd won. Back at the house, Amanda stormed into my room, phone in hand, her face twisted with rage. "What have you done?" she shrieked. "You made us look like monsters." I stood calmly, my silver hair pinned neatly, my cardigan wrapped tight around my shoulders. "I didn't make you look like anything. I just showed the world who you really are." David appeared behind her, pale and shaken. "Mom, why?" I turned to him, my eyes filled with both sorrow and fire. "Because you chose her over me. Because when I needed you, you told me to apologize for being alive. That was the day I stopped being your burden. That was the day I became your reckoning." Amanda lunged forward, but David caught her arm. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw shame carve lines into his proud face. But shame wouldn't save him now. The sheriff arrived that evening. He spoke with me respectfully, then turned to Amanda and David with firm authority. "We've received reports. You two will need to answer questions downtown." Amanda screamed. David tried to explain, but it was too late. The damage was done. Their perfect facade had shattered. Neighbors whispered, co-workers judged, and the stain of their betrayal would never wash clean. 2 days later, I moved out of their house. Mark helped me settle into the little property John and I had kept hidden, my sanctuary. Lily came to visit often, her laughter filling the rooms, her innocence untouched by her parents' greed. I showed her the garden, the old rocking chair, the little secrets John and I had left behind. "This is ours," I told her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Yours and mine. A place built on love, not cruelty." At night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the stars spread across the sky. I thought of John, of his quiet strength, of the way he always told me I was tougher than I knew. I thought of the day Amanda called me a burden and the moment David told me to apologize. Those wounds had hurt, but they had also forged me into something stronger. I was no longer the invisible old woman in the corner. I was Margaret Collins, survivor, fighter, mother, and avenger. And as the night breeze brushed against my face, I whispered into the dark, they thought I was their burden. But in the end, I was their downfall.